You are listening to the Showbiz Side Hustle Podcast, powered by PerformerPreneur. I am your host here, Nicole Louise Geddes, and together we'll be delving into all of the ways that a showbiz side hustle can support you now and long into the future. So sit back, relax, and listen in, and together let's get inspired to take action to create the life, future, and business of your dreams. This episode is sponsored by the Showbiz Side Hustle Handbook, available on Kindle and in paperback over on Amazon. Follow the simple tasks laid out over 3 easy-to-action sections and effectively build a strong business foundation for a successful showbiz side hustle. Hello and welcome back to the Showbiz Side Hustle Podcast. I am your host here, Nicole Louise Geddes, and today I am bringing in a really important expert, somebody that we all need to know and to listen to and to understand the really crazy, complicated world of accounting. Please welcome to the stage, Stephanie. Drum roll. Thank you so much for joining us, my love. It's April. It's the beginning of the tax year. The questions are flooding into my inbox about what that means for performers with businesses, performers without businesses, performers who have properties. You know, it's all coming in, and I'm not the expert on this topic, hence why I thought it was going to be super important for me to bring in somebody who knows their stuff, and nobody better than you, my love. So please introduce yourself and then we can get cracking on the good stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Stephanie. I'm CEO and founder of multi-award-winning bookkeeping accountancy practice ABCS UK. I'm also founder and host of the 3Bs podcast, where we help business owners build better business in 15 minutes a week. And just recently, #1 bestseller for my new book, Finance for Life, teaching financial education to 16 to 19-year-olds and beyond.
Oh my God. Yeah. And so important, right? This stuff. And it's probably a really nice place to start, because to tell the listeners that this stuff wasn't taught to us, like we don't know it. Please don't be ashamed if you have questions, if you don't understand it. Like I am there too, you know, I've learned and I've asked but I've got an accountant. Like it's not my expertise. Like I'm not going to do it myself. I do understand that we have to when we start out. So there's no shame in what we don't know. You're shining a light on what people need to know. And that's the bit, isn't it? With your wonderful book and your podcast, and here today to directly tell my audience what the beginning of the tax year means to them, what the next 12 to 18 months look like, because there's some big changes. So I'm going to hand straight over. I think the first question might be something really simple, like when does the tax year start?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, before we get into anything, is don't worry about it. Ask the questions. I am an accountant. I have been bookkeeping accountant since I was 16 years of age, and I'm 34 almost. So I have experience beyond most people, and I still have to go and ask the questions. I still have to ask other accountants, especially with those niche things. And every business is unique. Every person's situation is unique. My biggest bugbear is when, oh, but so-and-so down the pub said that I can claim this, but they're in a completely different situation to you. So don't worry and ask the questions. There is no stupid questions. If there is, I've probably asked them myself hundreds of times. But the tax year runs from the 6th of April to the 5th of April each year. Last year, basis period reform came in. That meant if you did your tax return with a different time of the year, everybody got moved to the 6th of April to the 5th of April, or the 1st of April to the 31st of March. So either of those are completely okay. Self-assessment season is for sole traders. So if you have a limited company as a business, your year will be slightly different. Your self-assessment is your personal tax, which is what the one that we're going to talk about today is the one that most of you will need to do, even if you don't run a company necessarily and you just invoice for your performing work that you do.
That's really interesting, and a great thing that we need to probably start with again is those different areas, those different ways to be in business: partnership, sole trader, limited. We are going to talk today primarily about being a sole trader, but are you able to just give us a little bit of background on what the 3 of those mean? I know for a fact that most of my listeners will be sole traders, but I know that people are always asking the question, should they be limited? I know what I reply to them and the advice that I give and tell people to do their due diligence, of course, but what is your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So a sole trader is an extension of yourself. Anyone can be a sole trader. You're just going to go and start. You're going to sign that contract. You're going to go for that audition. If you're doing a different type of business, you're going to start doing the product or making the product or supplying the service, depending how your business wants to run. But a sole trader is an extension of yourself, basically. You could put leaflets through the door tomorrow saying, I'm starting this theatre class, I'm doing this. You're a sole trader. It's that simple. Once you turn over, so once you sell more than £1,000, you receive more than £1,000 of income in that financial year, that's 6th of April to 5th of April. That's when you need to register with the HMRC and tell them that you are trading as a sole trader, you have a business, and then the self-assessment and the tax returns come into it. A partnership, there's two different types of partnerships. So there's a partnership where two sole traders or more, it's up to 30. So 2 to 30 people go in and run the same business. And maybe you and another performer both do theatre classes so that you can make more money or you can cover holidays, whatever that may be. But there's also a limited liability partnership, which runs like a limited company, which gives you the extra level of protection in case of lawsuits and things like that, worst case scenario. But when we say partnership, there's a sole trader partnership and there's also the limited liability, which runs more like a company. And then you've got your private limited companies, which is where you are secured. There's a director, there's normally one or more directors or shareholders in the business, and that is a separate entity to yourself. And I'm going to talk a lot about looking at your business as a separate entity, even if you are a sole trader. Think of it as its own. Think of it as Tesco. Think of it as a business that already exists. That is a business, and you run that business rather than a sole trader being just you working as a business.
Well, and I think you're right, because when you have that mindset that you're running a business and that you're not just a business, you then have a very different perspective on paying yourself, for instance, and, doing the things that a business owner should do, like the taxes and the books, and getting on top of that knowledge and doing the things in a way that means the business can grow and flourish. And sometimes, and I see it with my clients, and I'm sure you do with yours, when they're in and they're not necessarily doing all the things that would be the best version of building and succeeding in business. So yeah, that's important, and it just really resonates with me and how and what I tell my clients. Okay, so there's the nooks and crannies of that bit, but we're going to primarily be talking about, as we said, being a sole trader. So that can be, like you said, any business, anything, anyone. And after £1,000, we need to register with HMRC. And that's as easy as just clicking a button on the internet and filling out the forms, and there you go. And I think that might be the bit that makes this more complicated than it seems, because it's not the doing's not complicated, but the fact that everybody can do it seems a bit obscure to some people. Like, does that mean I'm done? Is it me? And it makes it feel complicated, but it's actually really simple, right?
Absolutely. You can go on gov.uk and click a button and register for self-assessment. It's as simple as that. Also, if you're worried about not doing it on time, so the way the rules are is you need to register in the October after the financial year that you go over that £1,000 trading allowance threshold. So in April 2025, if you went over £1,000, you would actually have until October 2026 to register for self-assessment. You don't need to panic. You don't need to worry. I think that's the main thing I want your listeners to get from this episode is taxes aren't scary. It is quite complicated, and I understand that the nuances can be complex, but actually you have time. Don't panic. There's so much. Everyone thinks it has to be done immediately. It's like, okay, I'm going to start a business tomorrow. Now I need to register and do this and do this. No, you don't. Just start the business, start the thing, do the thing. And then when you get to that point, you've still got time. But the one thing I would say is to keep records as soon as you decide you're going to start a business. Keep every receipt, keep track of when you go to auditions, when you are doing acting classes or vocal coaching, if it's like a performance-based business you're running, if you're running another type of business, all those little bits, all those travel tickets, all those costume and makeup, the rules are quite complex around what you can and can't claim for, because all these receipts you're going to use to offset your tax bill when tax time comes around, or give to your accountant to do that for you. If it's exclusively for performing, so if it's stage makeup, wigs, specialist clothing, that is all tax deductible. And also things like home office and internet. Most of you aren't going to have an office. You're not going to come into the office. You're going to work from your kitchen table or your dining chair, and you can actually claim a portion of that back. So there's a whole list of things that you can claim that you're already paying for, but you need to keep it written down. So whether it's an app in your phone, whether you use a piece of software, I've got a few tips that we'll maybe go through later of where you can get free software to help you with these things. But from the beginning, start treating it as business from the very beginning, because then you're not going to get unstuck further down the line when you do hit that threshold and beyond and start making money.
And we at college, I graduated long time ago. Gosh, too long to even think about. But we did get told a little bit of this. I can remember having shoe boxes of receipts. Like literally, that's how long ago that I was, graduated. A shoebox with receipts you had to go through. There's definitely better ways of doing that now, like you've just said, tips and tricks and tech that will help. But equally, you have to keep them. We do know that. Get them in a shoebox if that's how you need to start, but start somewhere. And then we're going to look at how we can do that better. And I think that's a big bit of business, not just, accounting and self-assessments. Business in general is, in my opinion, just get started and then you'll find better systems and processes when the funds allow, when, your capacity allows, when you've got a knowledge gap, you'll seek, when you find somebody that can help you, you can ask. But getting started and not being a perfectionist about it is probably one of my big top tips. And if the same goes for this as well, and that time that you've just gifted us with saying that timeline, that feels really kind of liberating as well. So thank you for that. Yes, get started is the main key. Many of us listening are starting out and doing it ourselves. Would you advise that?
Absolutely. If that's what you need to do to get started, absolutely. I would always recommend getting an accountant, particularly when we go on to the new rules that are changing. You're really going to need somebody in your corner that you can ask those questions to with that gap that you don't have, that none of us have because nobody was taught this stuff. They don't teach taxes at school. They don't teach financial education at school. So you're not going to know it. And it's okay to not know everything. But I think for me, if you have to start doing it yourself, then start doing it yourself. If it's a notebook with pen and paper, it's a notebook with pen and paper. If it's notes in your phone, however it may be, just get started. That is one of the biggest things I tell all my clients is you just got to do it, and failing and doing it wrong and learning better systems, that's all part of having a business.
It is, and it's refreshing to hear you say that. I think something like taxes and self-assessments and money, it just feels so important to not get wrong. But like you've said, and like we know, you can work it out and you will get support to make it better. Ideally, we don't get caught up in a problem, but if you do, there's always somebody that can help you. And you mentioned there that things were changing. I mean, I'm aware of that a little bit. I'd be very interested to know a bit more. I have the luxury of an accountant, so that's their job to know this stuff. But equally, it's very important for me and the listeners to know this stuff as well. We shouldn't really be depending completely and complicitly in somebody else. We need to be leading and remembering and doing ourselves. So tell us a little bit about that if it's not going to scare us.
Absolutely. So, Making Sats Digital was meant to come in 2021, but due to the pandemic, it actually got delayed and delayed and delayed, but it is now coming to the fore. So, I've had a few years of learning about this, but again, it's not publicly publicized. The HMRC aren't talking about it publicly. It's not something that's really even talked about. So Making Tax Digital for income tax, or IT as they're now calling it, is where you're going to have to start submitting your self-assessments on a quarterly basis and then a final one at the end of every year. Now, I know that sounds really scary, but actually if you get the procedures in and make it a regular thing of keeping your books up to date, keeping your receipts up to date, it's not going to be that scary. What is scary is who's included. So from April 2026, so literally a year from now, anyone who has income of £50,000 or over, and that can be a landlord or a sole trader, will need to start submitting quarterly as well as annually. From the following April, so from April 2027, there will be £30,000 turnover. So if you're making £2,500, and when I say turnover, that is income into the business. That's not after your expenses. That's not after your fees and things have been taken off. That is pure income. So if you are making £2,500 a month in your business, you will be included in this new quarterly regime. And as bookkeepers and accountants, we're figuring it out alongside you. We have had the benefit of the beta test, which went live in April. So if you do have an accountant, speak to them. If you don't have an accountant, you can always come and speak to me and I can show you how to do it. It's not a problem. But you can practice in the year leading up, so from now, so that when it becomes mandatory, you're not going to get caught out with any fines or late payments or any charges against your account.
And presumably, as much as this sounds scary and full on and quite regular, and we've got other things that we want to be doing, presumably once you get into this system, well, we have to get into this system. Once we're in this system, we're going to have a lot more insight onto our own income and finance and financial health. And that can only be a benefit for a small business owner. Once we've got over the hurdle of the doing and the frustration and the overwhelm of it, my opinion would be that that's actually going to be beneficial to build a business, knowing the intricacies of your own financial stability, right?
Absolutely. And we go back to what you said is that people are quite often um, don't do the thing. They don't work on the business. They work in the business day in, day out. They're not tracking their income. They're not keeping an eye on what they're spending. And actually having that insight of having to sit down every 3 months and look at their business from such a bird's eye view can help make better decisions, can help make more informed decisions. So they're making better decisions as a business owner for themselves and for the health and the growth of the business, whatever their goals are in their business. I quite like it. I think I'm probably the only person I've seen in the industry that says it because I see all my clients quarterly anyway. It's something we've always done. And when you think of the bigger businesses, once you hit that VAT threshold, they have to submit quarterly anyway. So it's not something, if you're going to get to a bigger business, it's something you're going to have to do anyway. So actually, by starting smaller, might actually help you grow faster.
I mean, I'm probably the second other person that's saying it then, because I think, yeah, I do think knowing the conversations I'm having with my clients, with performers, with performerpreneurs building businesses, it's that bit like, do you know enough about the numbers? And I feel like this makes people look, you're going to have to. Whereas when it's that year long, ignorance, that's not the right word, like ignoring it, then you come really unstuck and it's all too late, right? So I'm with you. I think this could be a good thing. I think change can be a good thing if approached with a positivity and a willingness to make it so. So that, as scary as it sounds, I'm going to be telling my listeners, telling my clients, like, we're going to get on top of it. And we're going to get on top of it sooner rather than later. So we have a year to practice that. What are the non-silly questions, going to say the silly questions, but because we mentioned that there aren't any, what are the questions and the problems that you see regularly that you just think, oh gosh, if people did read my book or did listen to the podcast, this is such a simple solution? What are the things that you're seeing regularly that you think my clients will be coming across that you can solve?
Yeah, I think technology is a big one. I think a lot of people are still quite scared to embrace technology. I mean, AI is thrown around all the time now, but technology can really help you and speed up that time it's going to take to do your book. So if you're in the UK and you have a bank account with Metal or NatWest or Royal Bank of Scotland, bearing in mind Metal have a free account, you will get a free subscription to Free Agent, which is a bookkeeping and accountancy software where you can plug in all this information because when you have to do the making tax digital submissions, they have to be done via software. It can't be done on a paper form. You can't fill in something on the government website. It has to be done via software. So again, the earlier you get into using this software, the easier it's going to be when it becomes mandatory. And actually, Free Agent is a great tool for small businesses, sole traders. And if you've got that Metal bank account, even if you don't use it, that gives you your free software subscription, which is great if funds don't allow. And when you get started out, Free Agent's really user friendly as well. It's definitely one that we use for our smaller clients in the practice until they grow up to using Xero or QuickBooks. My biggest tip is to start setting aside money for tax and national insurance. I talk about it in the book from a personal level, but it works from a business level too. Bank accounts like Monzo and Starling, you can have these pots. So unlike the old days where you would have envelopes and you'd put your money for your rent and your bills in your envelopes, you can do it all digitally. And you can even set up every time money comes in to automatically put 20% away for your tax in your pot. So you don't even notice it, you don't miss it because it's put away, you can't see it. And sometimes that can even gain interest as well. So you're making money and building money by saving for these taxes. And that reduces that stress and that overwhelm of leaving it to the end of the tax year and then suddenly having a tax bill that you've not saved for. I often use the analogy that if I went to the doctor tomorrow and was like, I had a headache 6 weeks ago, they can't help me. And accountants often get frustrated by the fact that we can't help you because the tax year's been and gone by the time you bring us all your receipts. So actually being proactive and getting into doing it regularly and being on top of it as it happens gives you more data and more insight to make those better decisions as well.
Amazing. Wholeheartedly agree. The thing that just struck me then that you were talking that I thought might be an interesting avenue to go down is the being inside your bank account, having those pots, moving that money, not getting the shock at the end of the year. Yes, we're talking small scale startup, 30K, 40K, but when we get to the VAT threshold, and correct correct me with the money. It's moved, hasn't it? It's just changed.
90,000 now, yeah.
Which is great. It's gone, we've got more. But when you get to that, again, sometimes you can get caught out with that if you're not inside your numbers. And that's happening to businesses that are hitting VAT thresholds. They're not knowing daily, weekly, monthly what's happening. They're not moving that money aside. And then they're coming unstuck. Can you talk to us about that? Because I know I've got some clients that are on the cusp of, and I'm telling them they need to be inside that. They need to know that rolling amount.
Yeah, absolutely. So with VAT, as we've talked about before, is it's not just the end of the tax year, it is a 12-month rolling period. So the previous 12 months total of turnover or sales, as soon as that hits 90,000, you have to register for VAT. Now, a really big tip is if you've been keeping those receipts for the past 4 years while you've been building that business, you can actually reclaim your VAT on any purchases made for the previous 4 years before you sign up. You don't have to pay the sales VAT, but you can reclaim that purchase, which for some of my clients has resulted in them getting 30, 40,000 pound by hitting that VAT threshold. A lot of people are scared of hitting the VAT threshold, which actually to me it's a privilege. The moment that I started paying VAT, I saw it as a real milestone, as a celebration of I have a successful business, I'm growing a successful business. Paying VAT is a good thing. And if you look at it right and look at where your suppliers are and where you're buying things from and your expenses, can actually be really beneficial. But it is that 12-month rolling, and as soon as you hit it, you do need to register. But do stay prepared for that. And again, as soon as you start putting that money away now, getting into that habit, even if it is as simple as putting away 1% of every bit of income that comes in into a pot, and at the end of every quarter, that's your money. Like go and get yourself a coffee, go and buy yourself something, whatever it may be, a little treat to so that you're in the business, but you can see the benefit of having a business rather than having a job. Because I know as a business owner, at times you can think, why am I putting in all these hours? Why am I doing all these things? But actually, having something as simple as a 1%, which you're not going to notice being put into a pot, that's 1 penny in every pound. Even if it's just a coffee or a cake from the cake shop, or if you've had a really successful quarter, you go and buy yourself a handbag or a pair of shoes or book a holiday, whatever it may be, that will really help keep the positivity and momentum growing in your business as well.
100%. I do that. I'm terrible. I do that, and I think we all should. We should be celebrating. If we were in corporate, we'd be getting bonuses. We'd be getting, days, team building days. We'd be getting these rewards. So I am a strong believer that we need to be putting some money aside to reward ourselves for the work we're putting in. There's so many different ways we could go with the conversation. We've gone small, we've gone big, we've gone VAT, we've gone tax return, we've gone self-employed. Your book's going to answer the majority of these things. And from a very kind of basic level, is it a starting point?
So, Finance for Life is actually more along the personal side of things. So, it is split into multiple chapters. It's only 182 pages, so it's not a huge read. But there's rent versus mortgages, there's utilities, there's grocery shopping, there's fitness and nutrition chapters in there that one of my personal trainer clients has put together fitness plans and nutrition plans, affordable ways to get more protein in your diet, for example. And then there's the business side, and there is a very granular, very basic understanding of starting a business in there. But there's also pensions, which a lot of business owners don't think about because when you're employed, it gets deducted automatically. When you're a sole trader, it's really hard to, or a business owner, to think about putting money away for the future. So it's a great book, and there's lots of little chapters, and some of it might resonate now, and some might resonate, further down the line. But even back to understanding your pay slips, if you're running a business and it is a side hustle and you're just starting out and you're still employed alongside, understanding all those figures on your pay slip and making sure you're not being taxed too much, that's all in there as well.
That's amazing. It sounds to me like there's a second book in there though. Like there's going, okay, and now we're going to delve even further into the business bit. Pensions, that's probably a good one to talk about because I've had a conversation in the membership recently about that because it can be offset, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So personal contributions into your pension up to the threshold, which from now is, I believe, 60,000 a year. You can put up to that much tax free, and that will get deducted from the tax that you pay when you do your self-assessment quarterly or annually. You can just do a one-off payment near the end of the tax year, which sometimes works better for business owners if they've got real fluctuating income. You don't want to commit to that 100, £200 a month, and then find that you've got no shows that week, no work that month, and we all have quiet periods in business. I use Penfold. They're relatively new to the market, but they're very modern. They have an app. They don't charge any fees. You can sort of see forecasts of when it's growing. I talk about it in the book because actually it's the modern way to run a pension. And I couldn't tell you what was in my workplace pension. I couldn't tell you who it was with. I couldn't tell you how much was in it. I couldn't tell you what it would be worth when I retire. All this is now visible to you in an app, and in the modern way of doing it is that you have all this technology at your fingertips and you can see and plan better because you've got it. All goes back to having this data. Once you've got this information, you can make better decisions of using that information that you've got.
That's brilliant. Penfold, did you say? Yeah, perfect. The conversation has been happening recently in the group, so that's really useful, and I'll pinpoint that for people to build on the conversation we're having. But I think it's important to future-proof ourselves, right? With this information, with this thing, we need to think about pensions. We haven't got the stability that, you know, our parents maybe had if we're going down both the creative route as performers and then building our own businesses. So I think that's something that people really need to think about. And I'm going to hold my hands up. I thought about it much, much later on in life. But once you understand it, realize the importance, the relief that you have something that you can, and that offsetting bit as well is super useful. What else are you thinking? Is there anything we're missing?
I think check for tax reliefs is a big one, specifically with this industry, because there is a lot of creative relief. So when you do your tax returns, there is lots of things you can claim for and lots of allowances that are specific to the performing industry, to the creative industry, to TV and film and things like that, that are not commonly talked about, even when the budget's televised twice a year. That it's in the supplementary pages afterwards. It's not actually talked about on the television, only the very basic headlines. Travel is a big one. So for the first 10,000 miles every year, you can claim 45 pence per mile from your tax bill. If you're traveling by public transport, then obviously keep all your receipts for those. TfL, when you're tapping in and out in London, don't give you receipts, but your bank statement is sufficient enough to use as evidence of it says TfL. They know that's what you've paid for. If you use a bicycle, you can also claim mileage, which people don't seem to realise. So it's 25 pence per mile for the first 10,000 miles. But actually, if you cycle to and from auditions, to and from fitting appointments, whatever it may be, they can also be offset from your tax bill.
Amazing. Is there a list that we find anywhere? This has always been an ongoing conversation, actually. What's included, what's not? Is there an actual list?
There isn't an actual list, and it varies obviously depending on your unique circumstances. So you could have two performers and one thing would be allowable for one and one would not be for another. So that is best where they best get advice. But they can find me on social media and drop me a message, and I'm happy to, maybe I'll compile a list for your listeners.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I mean, don't give yourself any extra work, but yes, please.
Nice.
Take it. And while we're talking about your socials, do you want to drop them verbally and we'll also put them in the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking for the practice, it's ABCS UK. It's Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter or X now, and Facebook. For the podcast, it's the 3Bs. So THE.3, letter B and then Z, or LinkedIn, Stephanie Marshall, FICB. You can find me pretty much anywhere.
I've been listening to the podcast. And it's so valuable because it's so short and sweet. In fact, I've done like 3 or 4 in one go in the gym because it's, and then there's things to implement and think about, and it really gets your brain whirring. And I love the 15-minute chunk. So definitely recommend, ladies and gents listening, to go find Stephanie and her podcast and listen. I mean, there's over 100 podcasts, but it's not that overwhelming because they're so short. It's amazing. Thoroughly enjoying it, so thank you, and do recommend to go listen. And actually, I'm going to be on there soon myself.
Yes, you are. So mainly it's me, so I will, pre-warn the listeners, it is definitely just me most of the time. I do have some great guests on, some really inspirational speakers, but I like to give a whole business view. So at ABCS UK, our practice, we don't just do the bookkeeping, accountancy and compliance and keep HMRC away from your door. We also do business development. So we build web shops, we do email marketing and sales funnels, all the things in business that I have learned over the years, we implement into our clients' businesses to help them get to where they want to be. Knowledge is no good if you don't share it. So I'm all for sharing as much knowledge as possible. So actually, the podcast covers a whole range of topics, and the bits that I'm not the best at and I'm not the expert at, I will get a guest on to come and talk to them about it. It is mainly financial, but it also covers marketing and PR and awards and hiring employees, and it follows my journey in business. And I'm very open, I'm very honest, and 15 minutes is just enough while you're on the school run, while you're on the commute, whatever it may be, to just get one in. And it's better than just listening to the radio sometimes, because actually you feel like you've done something and you've learned something before you've even got to where you're going. So definitely, yeah, I'd love to have you over at the Three Bs podcast.
Yeah, I can wholeheartedly agree. It's like a stimulus for the next thought, for the next rabbit hole, for some of the things that I've been like, oh yeah, no, I need to research that more and do that more. But as I always say to the listeners, to my clients, to performerpreneurs everywhere, like, you can never have too much knowledge. Like, do just keep learning, keep sucking it up. But equally, at the same breath, you don't need to know it all. There's people that have got the answers and things. And so we've come full circle with the conversation, because that's where we started. We are here to help. Stephanie has the answers when it comes to this really big and daunting thing, which is our tax return, our taxes, our employment status. And so seek those people, and we're going back there and saying, come and find her, me, us, anyone. There'll be people in your family, in your friendship groups, that have answers to questions you have. I think we all just need to start asking them more and finding those resources and people that are not gatekeeping. And you use that word, and it's a word that I use. I'm not, and there's more people than ever who are opening the door and sharing knowledge. And I love that about the kind of era we're in. It's so accessible. So please do, as we say, go find Stephanie. I think there's a whole list of things we could talk about in terms of taxes and it being April, and how daunting it can be. If you're smashing it, listeners, because there'll be some people that are listening going, I am all over this, then literally please do applaud yourself and celebrate this, because so many people find it scary. So if you're listening and you're celebrating and you're doing this successfully and you've got this, then just preempt that next step would be my biggest tip. And make sure you are making it digital and you are ready. And if you are not so confident and comfortable, then start now too. Is there anything that you would like to gift the listeners as your kind of last word on the thing? Just something that's going to sit with them and they're going to hold and they're going to remember you by, and also it's going to help them kind of just jump that quick hurdle at the beginning of their journey?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid and ask. It really is full circle. I would not be as far as I'm in business now if I hadn't have asked. And it did take me a couple of years to start asking for help. Actually, ask the questions, because the worst people can say is no, whether that's a testimonial or feedback from a client that you can use, or from an audition, maybe feedback so that you can improve your business, or a tax question, or ask others in your industry. I'm very lucky that the bookkeeping and accountancy community are very much collaboration over competition. We've always ran that way, and it's actually really lovely. Just ask the question. If people say no, then find the next one. People want you to win. Everyone wants you to win. The whole point of my podcast is we can all build better businesses. We can all win. So just ask the question. It's not scary too. Don't be scared.
Well, and there's going to be a few people, myself included, in the past who have got themselves in a pickle. And, if you are listening and you are in a pickle and there has been something that's gone wrong, or you've took your eye off a certain ball, or you've now got your eye on something and you realize it's not been quite right, nobody wants you to suffer in silence. So again, hold your hand up, ask for help. It will be okay. And there's people that will resolve this problem or show you how to, and there's steps to take. So I think that's probably a whole new conversation, but people are really scared that if they get it wrong, it's going to be a real drastic consequence. And the government website and HMRC, they're actually quite accommodating to people making mistakes, right?
Absolutely. People are scared of the HMRC, and I don't quite understand why, because their job is to help you. Their job is to help you understand the laws, help you do what you have to do for compliance basis. And we're all here to help, and they're also not as scary as people make them out to be. Most definitely not. And everything is figure outable. It's one of my favorite sayings. It doesn't matter how much of a mess you've got yourself into, there will be ways out of it. And the quicker you own up to it and the quicker you go, I need some help, the quicker it will get resolved and you can sleep at night.
Yeah. And if you can sleep at night, you can take on the world. So please do resolve them problems. I'm going to leave it there because I could go off on another tangent and another thing. But we have definitely covered enough ground to get people started and get people intrigued and feel empowered to do this. So go find Stephanie, come and find me. We will be there ever supporting you and cheerleading you on. Thank you so much, because I know that you know so much that it's hard to put it into one podcast, right? So thank you for sharing what you have been able to share in this short amount of time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Big love. Okay guys, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining me here on the Showbiz Side Hustle Podcast. So until next time, please do take a little bit of action, that very first step, and make sure that you are doing something for you and your Showbiz Side Hustle this week to move you forward and get you heading quickly and swiftly and strategically towards success.